The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Welcome back to the Brandon Peters Show. Today features a discussion of the 1986 film, The Wraith. Joining me from the PopCon International Film Festival, I have the director and programmer, Audery Lane.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Again, this is your first appearance solo.
Yes.
You were on the legendary Back to the Future episode, which I was so pleased with the results.
That was a lot of fun. That was very different, and I was very happy to be a part of something so unique.
It was a dream of mine, like, for a long time, and it happened better than I could have possibly. I got everybody I wanted to be on that show, show, and then they were just even better than I imagined. So
we should do that once a month. Like, I literally could get together once a month and do that type of show. It's so much fun.
I don't want to edit trailers for those.
I know that would be a lot of work for you, but it'd be really fun for me.
I almost, little behind the scenes, I almost cut out the part where I said I was going to do that because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is grueling. What if I just take it out? No one ever knows I was promising a trailer.
But it was such a good segment, like, to piece together. I mean, it seemed like such a real trailer. That was brilliant. It was good. It was.
It did. I pulled it off, but man, there were times because I think people don't know, but like we recorded that like a month or a little longer before that episode dropped because it was in my original package to have of my launch, my first 3 to 4 weeks of the show. So I was getting things done very early to figure myself out and figure how the show was going to go. And whew. But anyway, like back then. You were with Horror Hound with the film festival and slowly entering PopCon. Now you're just with PopCon.
I was doing both simultaneously.
Right,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, because that was right at the end, toward the end of that.
I think when the episode dropped, you weren't with Horror Hound anymore. I think when we recorded, you were, and then when it dropped, you were.
Yes, and that was really weird because that actually happened twice. So we did a group interview for Sledgehammer Horror, and we did it as a group. So there was like 7 of us from the film fest. George and I is the directors, a couple of people from the promo team, one of the other reviewers. So 2 of the other reviewers. So that was 3. Geez, sorry. That's where my brain is. So it was like 7 of us and it was a lot of fun. And it's funny because we recorded it and we were all still with them. And then by the end, we weren't, but it was an opportunity, to go on a show and talk about my first horror, and it's like, you can't turn that down. It was a lot of fun. And, he's a good dude. He's doing a lot with horror and getting a lot of guests. And that's one of his steady show segments is my first time horror. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you've been doing, how many years have you been doing film festival work?
Gosh, since I think in the official capacity of working with the film festival behind the scenes and not just at the convention, but being a part of writing for the magazine and the review team. I'm going to say 2015, 2014. I think 2015. Okay. I'm going to be comfortable and say 2015. Okay.
And so what all, for people listening that don't know a director, what goes all into it other than just, here's a bunch of films and we're scheduling them? Like it's more like
it is a lot of, I don't think people realize it's a lot of administrative work as well. So prior to becoming the director, I was on the film festival selection committee as well as the operations and promotions manager. And at the convention, I ran the promo team. And so there's a lot that's involved with that. And you have to have different pieces and different people in the proper place to make a festival work. And that comes from volunteers to the people that are behind the scenes, watching the films, rating the films, reviewing the films. You're doing a lot of contacting of filmmakers. You have to make sure people are watching the movies and keeping up to, their commitment. Then you also have the administrative piece of it, which is anything from doing the promotions, scheduling volunteers, programming the films. There's just so much involved, and it really is like it's more than a full-time job, because jobs end after 8 hours. You may do a little bit at home, but if you add up all the hours, if you are getting anywhere between 150 to 300 hours of films, and that is a lot. So even what people are presented, that's nothing compared to the amount of films that we actually received and watched. So it is a grueling job, but, I love it. But there are a lot of moving pieces. That's not even talking about the programming of actually programming the films that are screening, getting the films, downloading them, getting them all ready to be shown, doing filmmaker biographies, making laurels. It's a lot. And so, when people out there are watching film festivals, whether they're virtual or in person, a lot of work goes into it. An unbelievable amount of work goes into it. And you're only as good as the people that are working, with you. Nobody does it on their own. And it's nice to have a solid team behind you. But it is a great deal of work, but it's so rewarding and it's so much fun, because it's that fire that when you see that perfect film and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for other people to see this. It's like you get so excited, because you may watch 10 movies that day. And, there's been days where you're just like, none of these were like hits for me. And then like your last movie, I'm going to watch one more. And then that might be the saving grace, or that really good film that moved you may be the third out of, 15 movies that day.
Mm-hmm. Are there any like roadblocks or hurdles that come with films that you have to like do like background checks on, like where like someone submits a film, but because they were in this festival, they have to wait X length before they can go to another? Or
so that's kind of a two-parter. So that piece where if it can't be shown at your festival or has to show here, that usually comes with like films that are in distribution, or they are close to being signed and the distributor is saying, well, well, even until this is, signed, you can't play it here. As far as the background and looking at things, I feel like it's our responsibility to check on certain things. We had a category called Best First Time Filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And that was a category that we really pushed for and that we wanted for years, but we were actually able to do it the last 2 cycles of Horror Hound. And when we did PopCon, that was always in our plan from the beginning to have a Best First Time Filmmaker. We just feel like that's a really important, it's an important category, because you're doing it for the first time, and it means a lot to get that film out and that completion. So sometimes people put their film in as first-time filmmaker, and that's one of the things I think we check the most, because just from knowing films and working with multiple people, it's like, wait, that name is familiar. I don't think that person's a first-time filmmaker. How are they entering this? And so then you got to go IMDb, you have to go to their social media and kind of see what they're doing. But it's just, and we do that because we feel like it's only fair to the other people that are entering that particular category. That one's just a little bit, because it's all in the name, first time filmmaker, so you have to be, that's the one we diligently check, because we want to make sure that things are right. And sometimes it could be a slip of, there's yes and no questions when you're submitting your film. It could be that you mistakenly did it and it registered that way. It's just one that we really try to pay attention to.
Gotcha. And you mentioned you watch them all. Do you have a criteria for like critiquing that helps keep even the lowliest of them on your minds, or the middling one? I guess you'd remember the lowly, but the middling ones, like to keep them in, for judging.
Yeah, one thing is keeping great notes. You have to keep really good notes. The nice thing about Film Freeway is there's a section in there just for notes too. And every time you're doing your review. So like, for instance, when you have, let's say, you can only have, time wise, you may have 60 to 80 films in your festival. Let's just give a roundabout number or something like that. And you know that you got X amount of time of programming. So every film can't get in. And so when me personally, when I start going back and looking at those films, I go back and I kind of set a parameter for the ratings and go up and pull all the movies between this and this, or the ones that are this way and below. And those are the films that are easier to say, okay, for my vote, that this one doesn't, standard wise, you can't put like a movie that's rating a 3 into your film festivals with an average of movies that are rating, 6 to 9. It's not going to work. So I feel like as far as remembering movies, when you get to certain numbers, sometimes that gets hard, but you just have to go back through. And sometimes it takes multiple times of going back and looking at every movie that you rated, especially when you're doing like awards, trying to figure out who's going to get nominated for things. And you're looking at, all these different categories. So it is a tremendous amount of work. And that's, I'm glad you asked that question, because there's movies that I've had to watch 2 or 3 times. It may have come at the beginning of the cycle. And then when I'm going back and looking at my things, trying to narrow my list down, I'm like, oh, you know what? I think I need to watch that again. Or no, I remember this one. Or was this one that was kind of like, this movie is like the same. We've had movies with the same name before. So it's like, go in and figure out which movie. So we had to make sure we didn't, put those movies together, or make sure, when you're giving descriptions, you've got the right description there. But it's a process, and it's one that you have to give a lot of time to. You can't just, it's a lot, because you are seeing hundreds of movies. And last year, 2020, I would say we watched, doing some rough math, I'm going to say about 550, maybe. And that includes shorts and features, some cool music videos, some awesome documentaries.
It's a variety, at least.
Yes, that it was a variety. And with PopCon, there was even more of a variety.
You get done watching all these like festival films. You're like, all right, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to watch this movie or this TV show. Is that how do you unwind by watching more stuff?
Kind of. There's some go-tos because and we do this a lot, and it's just like, you know what? And sometimes it's not even that it was a bad movie. Sometimes they're really emotional movies.
Oh, okay.
And you need to, or it's really creeped you out, but not creepy like it's scary, but it's more of that realistic creep. Like they did some really heinous things that you can actually see happening in real life. And it's more like crime thriller movies, not just horror. You're like, oh, that's messed up. And it's like, you got to have your happy place. You have to, watch some comedy. And I'd say one of my go-to things to watch after one of those episodes is like Harlem Nights or Coming to America. Road Trip is a good one. Oh, Accepted. Anything Justin Long that's comedy. Oh, Sasquatch Gang. I don't know if you know about that movie, but it is amazing. It's so much fun. It's Justin Long and Joey Kern and Jeremy Sumter. And it is so out there. It kind of puts you in the mind of Napoleon Dynamite with the quirkiness, but it's nothing like it. It's super. And like I say, anything Justin Long, and I've got a lot of Justin Long. He needs to get his own section, because like Eddie Murphy has his own section.
Right.
There's because we have like so many Eddie Murphy movies, but Harlem Nights is definitely one of those movies, or Coming to America, that I know verbatim from beginning to end. And it just kind of relaxes and chills, makes me laugh. And I just kind of forget about.
That's a terrific damn movie.
All the, yeah.
People used to think I was crazy because when I lived in Los Angeles, I did Blu-ray and DVD testing, and I watched movies all day. Not just 8-hour shifts. Sometimes it'd be long shifts. And I would come home to unwind by watching late night, like watching my primetime television or watching a movie. And people are like, what, you sit there and watch movies all day to go home? Like, there's a difference when you're selecting, or it's what you are opting. It's not like, hey, here's Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix in Dutch. There you go. Have a good one. See you in 2.5 hours. It's not like they don't understand. Like, here is, let's see, Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit for the 19th time. Here you go. Yep. It's like, of course I can turn on like a TV show that I like and enjoy that. Like this is different work. Like, and I'm taking notes and I have to watch for things. Yeah. Or something like people understand. Like you can do other TV and movies to unwind from watching TV and movies.
Yeah, because you want to watch it at that point, not because you have to be. And especially one of the hardest things about a film festival is keeping up with the films and making sure that, you are steadily, watching. And so you don't have to cram to meet your, watch all these movies, 30 movies to meet your deadline. Right. And plus that's just not a good way to go because you're going to miss. I think you just kind of, if you're watching so many at one time, it just maybe you get jaded or you're like, I had enough of this today and I have to watch the movies, and you don't want to watch the movies. So you got to have that perfect blend of pacing, because if you don't, you're going to burn out or you're going to get overwhelmed because you watch so many, then you're going to get frustrated. And it's like, well, did you really give that movie a fair shot? Because you may have been just overwhelmed and tired, or you watched.
That's what I always like to tell people. I'm like, don't always, if you didn't enjoy a movie, maybe give those another chance rather than the ones you love. Because if I'm in a foul mood, I might, like, if I was like, I'm going to go see this at the theater this weekend, or actually for now, select it on my streaming device, I might go, not today, I have a headache or something like that. Like, I want to give it the fairest shake I can. And that really affects how you watch something. So you may have... It
does. And if I know I'm in a certain mood, I won't go and watch, something like, because I don't read, every now and then I'll read the description of the film. I never read biographies of the films before I watch them ever. Right. So I'm like, oh, this is kind of a really serious, realistic subject matter about something, like about child abuse or, something that's really, serious. And I'm like, I mean, it's not like the film is just about child abuse, but that is what's happening in the film. And then XYZ happens from there. And it's just like, I'm just not in the mood to be emotional, super emotional about a movie right now. I'm going to save that when I'm in a better mood. Right. So it's like, you got to know yourself too. And, when you're watching these films, because sometimes your mood sets, a tone or sets a pace. You need to be in the right headspace, because remember, this is a job. You're watching people's films and all the hard work that they put into making this film, and to give it the fairest chance possible, you have to make sure that you're ready to do your job that day.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well stated. Last year, all your film festivals and stuff were virtual, which I know it's not the preferred or ideal method to go about these, but what advantage and benefits did come with it? Like, what things could you take from here on, or what did you enjoy more about doing it virtual?
That's a great question. And I know that people miss being around each other and being in person, but with working with the film festivals for so long, what I did see is people didn't have to worry about traveling and making accommodations to attend. Mm-hmm. People didn't have to worry about not being able to see their film screen or seeing any interaction because they couldn't make the festival. So I feel like this gave filmmakers and, their families, friends, people that may not go to a convention, or people that like just films, but also had to compete with the convention all the time. It's like, okay, I'm at the convention. Now I got to plan my movie time. I want to see these 5 movies and I've got to work them into my day. People were just actually able to engage and watch the films and not have to worry about making it from one location to the other to get back from across, the convention to get to the film room. So I feel like for the filmmakers, it was very positive, because they were able to be there. They were able to interact with each other, and they were able to still see people interacting about their film, in the chat room or during the live screen, where we're all streaming and watching together. I feel like that was a very positive aspect. And it was also a learning experience for us, because we were able to get a lot of that feedback directly from the filmmakers of what worked and why they liked it. And they felt like, we had one filmmaker say they never felt so engaged with their audience before. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's saying a lot, because this person has watched his films at a film festival with the audience in attendance. And he just said he felt so much more connected to, the other filmmakers and the audience. And they thought that it was great to have a chat going and to have that interaction. And I got to say, I feel the same. It has its pros and definitely its cons, but I feel like people were so accepting and open to it. And I don't know if it was because they had to, or because they actually were like, hey, this is actually pretty cool, because now I really can be in attendance. If I've got 5 films playing throughout the course of this year at different festivals, probably financially, they may not have been able to go to 5
festivals. That's true. And there's things like Chelsea Christer was on the show. Her film Bleeding Audio got accepted into Slam Dance this year, and I was following that quite well. And that was like an app on like your Roku box or whatever you use, and it looked like a streaming service to pick the films and stuff. And for $10, you could attend Slam Dance. So I think the access got out there to more people for their films, because you didn't have to travel there for this year. You could be in anywhere in the U.S. and watch Slam Dance films, and they were getting a lot of feedback on Twitter. Reviews were up probably for them, because sites who couldn't send people could now cover it. And I think Sundance had something similar to that too, but it was really neat to see it that way. I know she really wanted to be in attendance at Slam Dance and show her film with people, but I think it went really well for her. She won an award there too, so that was great too. But yeah, like looked really cool the way they had. I know not everybody has the financial backing that Slam Dance does to create an app with selectable movies and stuff, but that was just a thing like, hey, I got in Slam Dance, and more people probably saw my film this year at Slam Dance than would have at that festival.
I mean, if you talk to enough filmmakers, you're going to get a lot of feedback, like I said, pros and cons, but for the most part, I mean, a majority, and I'm talking high percentage, like 85% were very accepting and thought it was a great idea to do the virtual fest the way it was done, and have some interaction. And I think with some of the bigger festivals that just had streaming, that just had you could select it was more interaction, and I think that's what people were missing. So when they got some of that interaction with each other and other filmmakers, and they could ask questions, and we did the Q&As, we did the post-screening Q&As after every block, so people were able to ask questions, and we were able to just talk about the films that had just screened. So that was a lot of fun.
Gotcha. And so PopCon, with will there be screenings of? Was there? I mean, I don't know if this year PopCon or whatever, because it's it's reduced capacity.
Yeah, so we are having an in-person, and it will be the convention and the film fest. But we are also going to have a part of that, the film fest, be virtual as well, to where people can actually see the movies also. So it'll be in person, but that's the piece we wanted to still be able to give people that could not make it, whether it was a financial thing, or they didn't want to travel, or they just still are not ready to be in, large crowds. Right. So we get that. And the thing is, when we first had talked about this, it was always kind of a thought that this might happen anyway, virus aside, that how can we get films out to more people to be able to see? Because that is the whole goal of a film festival anyway, period. I mean, the top goal is to get those films out to people to see, because you want them to see them. That's the whole, the whole point is you want to introduce these to people.
Not from around here.
Are you new in town?
Yeah. He's come a long way.
Hold on! You like living dangerously, don't you?
Now, he's going to do to them
Who are you?
what they did to him. Charlie Sheen in The Wraith.
Opens Friday, November 21st at a theater near you.
The Wraith. It's written and directed by Mike Marvin and stars Sherilyn Fenn, Charlie Sheen, Nick Cassavetes, Clint Howard, and Randy Quaid. After a young man is murdered by a road racing gang of motorheads, a mysterious fast-driving spirit descends from the sky to take revenge. So, Audrey, I always ask this. So with The Wraith, What is it that made you choose this and bring it to the show?
Gosh, okay, so I got to pick my movie, so I don't know. I wanted to do, when we talked, and it was like, it's hard for me to ever pick one movie for anything. You like favorite movie, favorite this. And so I thought about, like what one of my favorite sci-fi movies is, what my favorite horror, my favorite, comedy. And The Wraith, I don't know why that movie resonates so much with me. The only thing I can think of is of being a kid and in the summer, it coming on like Showtime or something like that all the time. And the very first time I saw it, I was like, this is actually pretty awesome. It blended my love of, because it was definitely more, sci-fi. It's not a horror movie, but it just blended my love of sci-fi and kind of the teen movie. It wasn't a slasher. It wasn't a this. It wasn't a that. It was kind of like so. It's
like a hodgepodge of what you just
said. And it was, and it was independent of movies at that time. It wasn't like The Valley Girl. It wasn't like it had its own. It had its own little niche.
Have you seen Class of 1984?
Oh yeah,
it's kind of got that vibe in it too. A bit, but continue. Sorry.
Yeah, Class of '84. I'm sorry. I'm thinking just Class with
the one with all the punks
McCarthy.
Rule the school kind of thing, and
yes, I do know what that
teacher has to go on like fight them. Yeah, kind of has that element of.
I don't know what it is. I think it just reminds me of a different time of being a kid, and it was actually really cool. And you've got the bad. There's a character that's for everybody, but they all weren't cliche yet. I just felt like watching that movie is you kind of knew somebody like that, especially, like in your teen years, it's like, you kind of know each one of these characters. There's the innocent girl that, she's not so innocent, but she seems sweet and she's, nice to people. She's not a super bitch to where as soon as you see her, you're just like, oh my gosh, I hate her. I can't wait till this happens. It was kind of she was a little vulnerable. She was very likable. She was very relatable without being too goody two shoes. Kind of like Laurie with Halloween, you kind of related to her, but Laurie was just a little too squeaky clean.
Right. Well, I do like with the Sherilyn Fenn character, it's not just like, why would she ever date this guy to begin with or something like, the girl dating the jerk? She's afraid of this guy.
Right.
And she's not really, she's just kind of submissive in a way that she doesn't want anyone to get hurt. And it's very believable. So,
and it was very ahead of its time with the portrayal of that character like that. I think that it showed a vulnerability. And like you said, you think, oh, why is she doing that? She's kind of dumb. But it's like, she knows his wrath. She knows that he is not a good person. And he is one of the most dangerous things is someone with a easily bruised ego.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a man or woman. It doesn't matter. People that easily are bruised tend to lash out at people all the time and in certain ways. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's verbal, sometimes it's doing some behind the scenes shit talking to other people to, keep trouble going. So, yeah. And he was easily bruised. And whenever he got easily bruised, he reacted in a very negative and violent way. And she, even though she couldn't remember what happened that night of the movie, which we might spoil later, she still knew, independent of that he was a bad dude.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, he's extreme type. It's a little bit heightened because it's a movie, but yeah, he's, this type of guy around. Like he loves his control. No one's badder than him. And when someone comes to town that might just be cooler than him.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
He's upset.
Yeah.
He just might be cooler. And, he's dangerous to his friends. He's dangerous to the public. He's,
Yeah, and that's the thing. He really had no friends. He had cronies that were afraid of him. I'm like,
right.
How lonely are you? And then you kind of, for a split half a fucking second, you might feel a little bit sorry for Packard. At least even watching it now and as an adult, it's one of the movies that holds up. So to circle back to your question of why I picked this one, it holds up. This has always been a movie I've periodically watched throughout, the years that it's been around, and it holds up.
Yeah. It's a super 80s movie. It could only been made then. It holds up I think of those Like a lot of those independent, like a lot of these filmmakers try to make these retro flicks. And I really think this is kind of the one that they're striving to be like. This is like when they try to make those sci-fi, but feels like it was from a different era. Your Turbo Kids, those type of movies. This they want to hit whatever lightning in a bottle the Wraith caught is what they're trying to go for.
And it was the Wraith was so simplistic because it didn't do too much sci-fi. You knew it was sci-fi because
it's very ambiguous, and they don't care that they don't need to explain everything. Just aliens, supernatural ghosts. It's something like and it almost gives you a little hope that if you died a violent death or you were killed before your time or something like that, that there might be a chance that you can come back and get a little revenge. Mm-hmm. It's a really different kind of revenge tale too. Yeah,
it was because you can come to visit, but you can't stay. And I love that every time I watch that, it's inevitable. Like the first couple of times I watched it, and I had to watch it again. I'm like, did I miss it? Did I miss that this is what was going to happen? And even watching it now, you still don't think that it's going to be the way that it was. You think, okay, this person's coming back for revenge. It's going to, they're just maybe in a different body and they're going to stay and, they're going to live happily ever after here and have a lovely time with their family, friends, and loved ones. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like that. And I think I love that part of it. That's what I like about nowadays we have movies that are fine-tuned. They're made by algorithms and all sorts of, they're always like knit perfect, but I enjoy a looseness, a little sloppiness from like the 80s and 90s when people are trying things out. I appreciate that. I like, it doesn't have to explain. I can use my brain and come up with things, and maybe you think something different, or we see around the same line, explain the same thing differently. And I think we lack that. Now people try to make ambiguous, but I don't think this was intentionally ambiguous. They're like, those aren't what's important for your entertainment. You still don't know what the Wraith is. I mean, it was never explained what the Wraith was, and I like.
You will come back to life and have a cool car. Like we'll do that. You have a vehicle with you. You can give it away at the end,
But I think the reason he had a cool car is because he had to bait him. He had to have something that would make, that would draw him to him. And he knew that, that was it. So it was like a grand design. Like I said, there's so many things what was it? We know that in the essence that it was, that it was Jamie. We know that in the essence, that's what it was. No, there was no trying to get around it and fool you. You knew from the beginning.
Something's up with this. This guy is connected to Jamie somehow.
Yeah,
like that was, and then it actually is. There's one thing that was weird, that when the Wraith he shows up in the motorcycle helmet, the costume. And every time he kills one of the bad guys, like there's a brace that disappears or goes away. Yeah. And apparently that is, when the Wraith appears, he's not very strong the first time. And every time he does that, he loses a brace, which makes him stronger. He's gaining his strength back, apparently. That's what
I never really thought about that.
That's what the director said, because apparently that confused a lot of people. I just wondered if I was missing something the whole time with those braces. I was like, wait, is he building a car?
Right.
Is that like the motor? Like
I kind of felt like, okay, so you remember at the beginning when everything comes down from the different points in the sky, you've got like those 5 pieces that come and converge.
Right, yeah.
I figured it was a celestial thing, or it's for whatever things, so all of those things had to line up perfectly for him to be able to come back. And so each time he exacts his revenge, that's one of the, then that's gone, that's done, that's off on your checklist or something,
It's funny, that opening where after the credits, they have those things show up in the carpet. It looks like a teaser trailer. Like you can imagine going like, this summer, when death isn't enough, when you're dragged, and then like the Wraith coming soon to a theater near you. Like it'd be like a perfect like 80s teaser trailer, but it's the opening to the movie. So it's really slick, commercial like.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because not that long ago, even before, and I didn't even go back and do it again before we started this, we were going to do the show, is I went to see what else that guy had done. And now I can't even remember what I can't even remember what I found.
This is hilarious. Mike Marvin, he did this. He was the second unit director, the writer, and co-producer of Hot Dog, the movie, which introduced the world to Shannon Tweed as an actor.
Yeah.
But in the 1990s, so get this, he does 4 softcore porn movies, but not under his name. He did them under the name Jake Casey, the character Charlie Sheen plays from this movie.
Yes.
So
yes,
that's what he did. And I guess he was involved somehow in the production of Better Off Dead, which is a John Cusack movie that I love.
Yeah.
So there was that's what he did too. But yeah, he did these, and he directed an episode of Silk Stockings in the 90s. So his softcore porn cred led him to that, I'm sure.
Mm. And this was like one of those just darn near perfect movies. So when I think of movies that I don't know, like the directors, and they just like hit gold, and you're like, okay, what else are they doing? It reminds me of I can't think of his last name, Les Mayfield, I believe, that did Blue Streak. Blue Streak was amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love that movie. It's
they were going to make a sequel. They never did.
And maybe it's just better left alone when
just make another, like, that's what I think with like comedy movies a lot of times. Just get the gang back together, do something else. Like if Blue Streak worked, get the director, get Martin Lawrence, and get Luke Wilson, and go have them do something else.
Yeah, and I like that when directors work with the same.
Steve Martin and the guy who directed, I look like a bad film guy, but the director of The Jerk, they did a bunch of movies together. They always get together and do a different movie. They didn't do The Jerk 2. They didn't,
right.
They just, let's make another funny movie.
Yeah, and you use the same stars. Mel Brooks is, notorious for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Christopher Guest and his gang of people. They don't make like still waiting for Guffman. They don't do that.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know why I love this movie so much, and I don't know. It was just. It had so many elements in it. It was just, the bad guys, that the people that are kind of on the outskirts. You've got, this guy that is a bully to everyone. He's a cheater. I don't like a cheater, even from that first, like I had him pegged like so easy. It was just like, he was so, and I don't even want to say one-dimensional, because he wasn't one-dimensional, because he did have a lot of layers.
Yeah.
But he was still so weird and lonely. I mean, and not lonely. He had people around him, but when you can't form a bond, and it just makes you a mean, bitter asshole. And he was just mean, and for no reason. I mean, it's kind of like you have to put the one thing I like about this film is you put your own backstory to the characters, because you don't get a lot of backstory except for Jamie and I'm just having a brain lapse what her character's name is.
Sherilyn Fenn's character.
Sherilyn Fenn's character, yes. Why am I having a brain lapse? But everyone else, and the brother, you have a little background on the brother because, the history there. But everyone else, you got to put together what their home life might have been like, their siblings. If they went to school, they were in high school, and you didn't even see one high school scene except for they're coming out, but you knew they were in high school, and it's just like, okay. Or at the very least, maybe Packard wasn't, and she still was, and the other guys weren't. But
I think maybe like with Packard, like, they murdered a guy. So in his mind, at some point, he's going to get caught. Or it's going to come back to him, or he's paranoid about that, or he thought he took out his guy at the top. And at the beginning, we see him race and cheat to win a race against the guy, which he may be thinking, oh, crap, my time's coming. Someone's going to knock me off my pedestal, and he's extra crazy. And then here comes Charlie Sheen, and he's like, that's it. That's the next thing I have to take out to keep my... Yep.
He was so determined that he missed the bigger picture. Yeah. It was right there for him, and with a little imagination. And I think a couple of times he did know, and he was scared to admit, even before the scene where he go into the car goes into the graveyard and ends up right in front of his grave. Right. He still knew, even, I feel like, before that. I mean, it's kind of like one of those scenes, and he's watching them. I mean, he's looking at them when they're at the river, and they're kind of floating down the lazy river, and his point of view, and you see him looking, and you assume, or like when you first see it, he's like kind of looking, you think he's looking at her and seeing what she's doing, but he's not looking at her. He's looking at Jake.
Right.
And he's looking at Jake like there's some familiarity. And why is this bothering him so much? And why is...
Well, the guy they cast to be the Jamie looked kind of like it's not Charlie Sheen, but like they fit the same frame and hair
the
and
profile, the jaw, the chip. It wasn't a far cry. It was a different face, but a lot of likeness in
similar
the
facial features
build.
too. That was really crazy. So yeah, I could get that. I would say like also there's a little bit more depth to like Randy Quaid's character, the asshole detective. So he comes in like this hot shot, going all this and getting all the punks, but he even has like the moment like when he walks in the garage to get Packard and he's like hooking up with that girl.
Yeah.
And he makes him leave and he goes to the girl, he's like, "Are you okay?" Like, because he knows like and it's kind of interesting. And it's kind of humorous how he's after the Wraith because there's murder in town, but then he realizes the trajectory of the murders and he's like,
yeah, it's like, there's only aimed at one group of people. So how bad do we really want to catch this?
He's doing my work for me now.
He's cleaning up the town scum. And the other thing too is what they were doing was really dangerous. I mean, they were doing it to a point where they were what they threatened to do to the guy's girlfriend at the beginning. I mean, that's not stuff you take lightly.
No.
There's like a group of 5 guys and it's you and your girlfriend and they're threatening to do things to her. And you're like, okay, this is my only way out. I'm going to race. But back to, Randy Quaid, he had to try to have some law and order in his town. He couldn't just have people racing and doing things like that. But like there was a definitive thing when he told him at the police station, basically, why am I really looking for this guy? Because he seems to only be after you and your friends.
You're right, yeah.
And then Packard kind of stops and they look at each other and they're like, oh, shit, he might have a point there. Why is someone after us?
Right.
Why? And they're thinking, no one knows what we did. Dude's dead, so why would anyone be after us?
Only Clint Howard could put it together.
I know. So one of my favorite parts in there is when the Wraith comes in and he starts like shooting up everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Like really early, it's surprising. He's like, "Oh, whoa, he's gonna take him down now."
Yeah,
but he's just messing up the garage.
He just was getting them where it hurt. He was just leaving, them to make the decisions he knew that they were gonna make. And he's like, "Who was that guy?" He was like, "I don't know, but he sure is weird and pissed off." And that is like my favorite movie. And when Gutter Boy is like trying to get away, and he's like scooting on the little tray that you lay on when you're going under the car with the rollers, and he's like in fast motion, like flying across the garage. Like that was the best.
Oh god,
I love that movie.
Well, I love the way he says, "You lose the race, you lose your car." Like I love the way he delivers that,
and the way he does his little whip.
Oh yeah,
he comes up on one leg. It was like he had a whole technique.
Right? Yeah, no, he was pretty funny. I being older and watching this movie, and I would have never thought of it back then. But I'm watching this, and I'm like, wonder if they only had like Charlie Sheen for like 3 days to shoot because he appears in the same places with the same. It's like he's very like they make him there throughout, but you can tell he's very limited in his use. And when I finally realized it was that garage scene, because there's a quick insert of the mask coming up, freeze framing, and his head being in there.
Yeah.
Like they did some sort of thing. I'm like, and then I realized, I'm like, yeah, he's definitely not the guy in that suit. I know that, but he's supposed to be. And they use this suit guy as much as possible.
I agree. And, I wonder if it was coinciding with something else he was feeling like.
I looked it up.
Young Guns?
He was on, so he picked up this movie to do on his way to the Philippines to shoot Platoon.
Platoon. Yeah.
So he stopped in Arizona for like a little bit, shot this movie, and then went on his way to the Philippines to shoot Platoon. And I was like, okay, it makes sense. And then, like, I guess Oliver Stone saw the Wraith, didn't like it, and was pissed. And he's like, you really think the Wraith is going to stop people from seeing Platoon? Like,
yeah.
But it's funny. There's another part of this too, that the Charlie Sheen factor is Johnny Depp was on set the whole time. because he was dating Sherilyn Fenn and stayed the whole production.
Wow.
And I'm willing to wager he found out Charlie Sheen was cast in this.
And so he was there the
and
whole
he's like, I need to watch. I'm gonna watch out here. Oh, I'll take off time. I will go however long this shoot is, Sherilyn. I'll be there for you. But I know he was probably like, I know that Sheen guy.
And here's the thing, and at that time, Charlie Sheen was extra fine. I mean, a little bit later, he looked really good in Young Guns. I mean, he had gained a little weight for that. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe the Hot Shots movies too, he was in good shape.
Oh yeah, that he looked good in that too. I mean, he's always been a good looking guy. I mean, not so much now, but he's always. And it's so funny because they looked so much alike back then, Charlie and Emilio.
Oh yeah,
so much alike. You know, I mean, they still look alike now, but Emilio still looks more like their dad. You know.
Yeah.
Than Charlie ever did. I mean, you can definitely tell they were brothers and they had different aspects of them, but as they've aged, Emilio still looks a lot like his dad.
Yeah. And speaking of that, like, so this is an interesting little tidbit. Don't know if it's intentional. This happens a lot, but so two of the leads in this movies are the sons of famous movie stars. You got Martin Sheen and Nick, or you have Charlie Sheen and Nick Cassavetes for John Cassavetes. In a side note, you also have Griffin O'Neill in this movie, the son of Ryan O'Neill. Yep. And then there's two brothers of stars in supporting roles with Clint Howard and Randy Quaid. So this is the relatives movie, though Charlie Sheen became a gigantic star in his own right. And
Cassavetes became a really good director like his dad. I mean, he went into writing and directing and he did a lot of good stuff. I'm a huge fan of his. It's funny watching him in those early works. I mean, he's still done acting and stuff here and there, but he has done some really, phenomenal directing and producing and writing. And he's had really good hit movies and TV series and and it's good. And Sherilyn Fenn went on to do, big things. She's got cult status and
Twin Peaks, and also she is like unrecognizable in this day. Like if I wouldn't have seen her name in the credits, I'd be like, well, I know her from somewhere. What is it? Because she's tan. She's normally white, like or paler, and blonder. Like she went with like Twin Peaks came around. She stuck with that black hair. I know she did play a role super blonde at one point later on, but she had that.
She ended up being on Ray Donovan for 2 seasons, and oh man, she was wicked. I mean, it was a really good.
She was Hank Azaria's wife on that show.
Yeah.
She's really good. She was a Fox back then though, when she was Twin Peaks era and stuff. Like she had a iconic kind of she could have been her career went the way it did, but she had a look that could have been if she was a humongous star, she could have she had an iconic look to herself with that. Like all those Twin Peaks, he did very well with his young casting on that show. They were all super talented and just
definitely.
But she's good in this very good in this movie. Definitely early role. She's 21 when I was like, how old is she when she did this? So 21 years old.
Wow.
Because it's a couple of years, 3 more years to be Twin Peaks for her.
Jeez.
Where she's playing a high schooler again.
It happens.
But no, it's got a lot of racing in this movie. It's a lot of crashing. Pretty decently filmed, I would say. It's not the best shot for shot, but I was definitely into it and watching that cool car go around and everything.
Yeah, the car was pretty cool, especially when they lifted the hood and you saw the motor.
Yeah.
And he's like, objection, I don't think you should race. He's like, oh, just put the tracker on there. And he was just like, and that's when he knew too, we're in deep shit, it's
right. Oh gosh. There was a camera operator died making this movie.
Oh,
another one was injured pretty bad. So someone gave their life for the Wraith. That happens time to time. You just kind of wish it could have been a bigger movie for the person, because it's a cult classic now, but it only played in 88 theaters when it opened.
And see, that's just bad marketing, not faith, because I feel like at that time in the 80s, I think this would have been a really big movie if it had been.
It hit on VHS. VHS made the Wraith.
Oh, yeah.
And I know for a fact, being in my Blu-ray circles, it's one of the most demanded. It's not on Blu-ray yet, and it's a high demand Blu-ray. Like Lionsgate owns it. And I watched it on the Roku channel, and it looks like it's been prepped for a high definition, like it's been restored. And I know there's been rumor that the Vestron video line they do, where last year they came back from the dead and they did Little Monsters and Shivers, the Cronenberg film.
Yeah.
And there was rumor that they have shot bonus features and stuff for the Wraith, so that it's been worked on.
I hope
but
so.
When it gets released, I don't know.
I'd like to add that to my collection.
Yeah, no, I want. Yeah, I'd like to see this on there. It looked pretty good. This one, because this one has great explosions too.
Yes.
When that the garage blows up.
That was a good one.
That is Craig R. Baxley. He's one of my favorite action directors. His level of explosion, because I'm like, damn, that looked dangerous. I hope people like ran away and didn't get hit by debris. Like there's wood shards. I love those because I'm like,
and when I don't know if it's my eyes, but when you watch it, does it look like it almost closes in and then comes out?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. Like that's the power of it, and
yeah.
That's the thing. Like that's like Friday the 13th Part 7, New Blood. Not my favorite of the series, but it has one of the best explosions when they blow that house up. I'm like,
agreed.
And I'm like, they really blew these things up, folks. Like this is danger. Like there's dynamite stuff. Like I don't think people really they take explosions for granted nowadays. But when I watch these 80s and 90s action movies and stuff, and they have explosions, I'm just like, I get so happy because I'm like, people had to hide. A camera got hit by it on the cover.
Make sure we're safe.
Yeah, like this is someone had to clean up. Like this is. I hope they cleaned up, but this was insane. Like just blow it. Like let's blow this thing up for a movie, And I love it. I wish blow more things up nowadays. I guess
blow them up more practically. Everything is on small model scales and it's built and it's made to explode. But there was no getting around that. That fucker exploded. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
And when I had just watched it recently,
cars when they go down the hill and just like fire, like you would set hills on fire nowadays. Yep. This is Arizona. This is filmed in Arizona, but they still get fires too.
Fires, it's like no, they're not caused, from special effects. These are just people being careless with fucking cigarettes.
Right.
It's like, can you imagine? There were no forest fires like that when they were filming in California and like Arizona, and the cars tumbling down the hill on Charlie's Angels and explodes, or the $6 Million Man, and all the things that got burned up and. They were contained. It's like, okay, we'll just go put that out.
Right. Oh gosh, it's so good. Oh, I love it. It's young people who watch it. You have to appreciate this stuff. Like it's insane. A little funny bit about this. In foreign territories, this was retitled as Black Moon Rising 2 and sold as a sequel to the Tommy Lee Jones movie from the 80s. That happens a lot.
Who was responsible for that shit? I mean, that was some trickery.
That wasn't a hit movie itself either. Like, here's a sequel to this shit.
And I think there's another name for it too, not like Retaliator or something. Okay. There's another name for it too.
Yeah, that happened back then. It happens. I mean, it still happens nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, recently, Captain America: The First Avenger, years ago when that came out, was just called The First Avenger. In other countries, because they didn't think people from other countries at the time would want to go see something with the word America in the title. But yeah, and it had itself a soundtrack. There's money through. I mean, it's not cheap to get Ozzy Osbourne, Billy Idol's Rebel Yell, Bonnie Tyler, Lion, Motley Crue's Smoking in the Boys' Room, Robert Palmer's Addicted to Love. Those are like hits.
Oh yeah,
like you don't just.
It had a great soundtrack, and maybe that's another one of the reasons I love this film, because of the soundtrack. And
the score is cool too. Yeah,
it's pretty stellar. And I mean, "Addicted to Love." Really, remember that was like the biggest song
of huge
the year. I believe it won Best Video. It won Best Song at the MTV Movies Awards. Kids, hey, that's when MTV really played music.
Yep.
All day long, every day. There were no reality shows yet or anything. It was just pure, unadulterated, nothing but videos, all kinds, every genre.
TLC's Waterfalls on the hour, every hour, sometimes every 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh, you said Waterfalls.
That was one of the videos that drove. I'm like, and then it won awards. I'm like, of course, because you showed it all the time.
Yeah, I honestly, there's sometimes I just can't even stand to hear that song. If it comes on, I'm like, beep. I just can't. And then whenever you hear it on the radio, it's the edited version anyway. So it just takes away, like, there's so much more of that song and it's edited out. And so it's dumb. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but yeah, this killer soundtrack, I was stunned. I was like, wow, that's not cheap. Cause I know, like, when Canon, they needed a hit, and they did Last American Virgin, like, they tossed a ton of money on that soundtrack to get, like, the Cars and REO Speedwagon, like, big hits to put on there because they wanted this to be a mega teen success. And it worked, but, like, they had to pay, like, I think close to their budget for the movie for the music. That can't, I mean, it's gotta be the case here, and this is probably a cheaper movie than that. Like, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm so glad it has cult status, because I'm sure at the time they didn't, maybe their profit reward, didn't pay off. But with the brilliance of VHS and actual video stores, and you couldn't have the instant gratification of watching a movie right in your home as far as something. And that's where a lot of movies that did not have good commercial success went on to have a long life and make a lot of money in video sales and video rentals. So,
because I mean, if you rented the Wraith, you were hanging out with the Wraith all weekend. Like,
exactly. You're going to watch it a couple times, and it was nice because about a week ago, the Wraith was on Comet, and I love Comet. I like to watch it while I'm working and, kind of having it as background noise, because there's always something horror, sci-fi-ish, but usually sci-fi. So it's nice to have on. And it was really weird or just a nice coincidence. So the Wraith came on first, and immediately after that, it was like a back-to-back, Maximum Overdrive came on.
Haha, yes. The Sheen Brothers double feature, yes.
Exactly. And it's both, they're sci-fi movies,
About vehicles.
About vehicles, exactly. So I'm just like, I just want to, like, really hug the person that did this. I don't know if you did it on, if they strategically did it or it just kind of happened. But I'm like, that seems like there had to be some thought into that.
I would love to have, like, a channel or an app that I can just curate. Like, I don't need the pick as you go. Like, I don't need the, like, on-demand movies. I'm just like, give me 24 hours and stuff to just program, and I will gleefully do it. But
I will theme you to death.
Yes. Like, who in the hell? Yeah, I would love to be that person. That's an ideal job. Also, I would point out that I think The Wraith is one of those cult classic movies that I would still consider a cult classic. Like, it's not like The Thing or like Blade Runner are now where, like, everybody knows. Like, it's considered good now. Most people know it. I don't think it has, like, a small base, but I would think The Wraith is still one that goes underseen, doesn't get remembered, hasn't been seen, tougher access, and I think is one that can still hold that mantle in a time where it's harder and harder because the cult movies with the internet became shared, became known, became a lot bigger, and I think this one still hangs there as a true cult movie.
It doesn't. It actually is, and I'll say this other thing about, so, when you're always talking about, I'm not a huge fan of remakes at all. I think I can count just off the top of my head, and I don't care what film genre it is, that I can probably count 5 to maybe 7 at the most remakes that I've liked or enjoyed. And when I think about remakes or reimaginings and things like that, I feel like I would not be upset if someone remade or reimagined The Wraith.
Right.
I think it has, and I'll say this, and one of the reasons why is because you've got your sci-fi element. I mean, you can do so much with that. You can make The Wraith anything you want because it was never anything particular. So if you wanted to tell a similar story, or it can be a whole nother story, but it's the same thing, something comes back. How does it come back? You don't know. But the other piece I like about that, and you can really throw that into more of our modern time, is a perfect meld of The Wraith and Fast and the Furious. You've got your racing.
Oh, yeah.
There's never should have been, let's just be honest. There never should have been 10 Fast and Furious movies.
Disagree.
Period.
I love them.
In my opinion.
I love that they keep going.
I mean, it's crazy fun action. It is.
Yes.
Wait, if you add Hobbs and Shaw, is that
That's
10 or is
10.
that 11?
That's 10.
And then
Or
the
no,
new
the
one's-
next. Well, wait, 9 isn't out yet. 9, we're waiting.
Oh, it's not out yet. Okay.
I mean, they have it. It was supposed to come out
It's just
last
waiting.
year, but yeah, it's one of those.
Technically, there's 10 in that series,
Mhm.
right?
And yeah,
Okay.
there's gonna be the Hobbs and Shaw. If there's 10 completed movies, 9 available to watch, basically,
Gotcha.
and there's another one on the way because they're wrapping
And
it.
I can really see that
They're wrapping
element
it up.
being added to that because, I mean, the racing part, it's huge. There's, that part's never going to go away. So I can see that mindset of Fast and Furious and the illegal racing and all that being melded into the Wraith. And I would actually watch that reimagining.
I had that thought of Fast and Furious this funny when I was watching it too. I was like, this is an angle. This is like an angle for like a Fast and Furious type thing.
Exactly. Like I said, I've watched a few of the movies and it's not that I hate them or anything. It's just, it's not my jam, but I have seen them and I like some of the action in it. There's crazy stunts and I like crazy stunts because I really like absurd action films. But I
myself, I was a doubter for a long time, and then I fell in love when I actually sat down to go through them. I think it was around the time the 6th one came out. I was like, everybody talked about how great Fast 5 was. I'm like, fine, I'll go through. And then I was like, you know what? They were right.
I was
wrong.
They were right. But can you see that though? It's like, I don't mind, I don't mind that one being touched because.
Well, and on your point of the remake, like remake got away from what it was supposed to be. Like a lot of times things were remade because they didn't work the first time. They weren't a big hit. Someone trying it again, or something was dated and they wanted to modernize their campfire tale or whatever they were talking about. And now it's like, well, this was a hit before, so let's do it again. And it's like, that's not what we were. But I mean, once Gus Van Sant made Psycho, anything was game, and we've been living in that since.
Yeah.
So
For sure. I would, love to see it. I would love to see a sequel or, like I said, a reimagining. I just think it's one of those films. And then again, part of me doesn't want it touched,
The Wraith with 2 eyes, so it looks like a 2. The Wraith. Yeah.
That's great. I like it.
Pick it up
now
again.
I'm going to be disappointed if it doesn't come out that way.
There you go.
With 2 eyes.
There we go.
I mean, it's just one of those movies. People go watch it. Hopefully there weren't too many spoilers, but I'm sure people can comment on it. I would really like to hear your thoughts on The Wraith. I would really, like to see what you thought about it. If you liked it, loved it, what worked, what didn't. It's not one of those perfect movies, but it's perfect for my liking. And it was perfect in terms of those good 80 movies that were teen driven, but they weren't teen-ish. Like there wasn't a bunch of cattiness. It was just more kind of bad stuff. It wasn't a lot of sunshine in this movie. And I think that's what sets it apart from other kind of movies that focus on solely teen, because there weren't a lot of adults except for like the cops. And there was
definitely
nothing else. So a whole movie carried by pretty much just teens, and it was all mostly negative stuff.
And also, like, if you've never seen The Wraith and you'd like to watch it, every time I post an episode, check my show notes. I let you know where it's available and where you can find it to watch it. Best can be for you. I'll let you know whether it's on DVD, Blu-ray, 4K Ultra HD, where it's streaming on a service that you subscribe to, where you can rent it, where you can buy it. So check that. It's right now on the Roku channel. So if you have a Roku box, you can watch it there free of charge with ads. With ads. What else? This is where we talk about anything we may have put out in the world or something we may have watched, read, listened to lately, and we just want to share. So, Audery, what else?
I usually don't like talking about myself in that aspect of like what projects I have coming up or anything like that. But I will, because it kind of covers what are you doing and what you've read.
Okay.
So in a couple of weeks, I will be filming She Burns in Hell Part 2, which is a fan film that is following Stephen King's Carrie. And it addresses that part of the book that the movies really didn't delve into. The miniseries kind of got into the investigations and things like that, and what happened with the town being totally destroyed, and what happened at the prom. A lot of people that have watched the movie and the remake don't realize there's about a quarter of that book that deals with the aftermath of Carrie, and it's kind of all woven within the book.
Are you talking about the series with David Keith? That one?
Angela Bettis and Candace.
I think so.
Oh gosh, what's Candace's last name? But so they did the miniseries for Sci-Fi, but it did cover some of the things, from the book when they were doing kind of the investigation. But there is so much of that book that involves just personal testimony, the White Commission, because people don't realize that Carrie didn't, kill all the kids at the prom. She literally destroyed the town because of her telekinesis. She was able to pull meteors down, and she was so powerful. So this part of this, what we're doing is telling part of that story of everyone's aftermath of Carrie. So it's mostly all the interviews and things like that. So that's a lot of fun. But reading the book, and I hadn't read it since I was a teenager, and I'm just like, I forgot just how powerful and strong she was. I'd love to see her and the Scarlet Witch and Jean Grey have a battle royale. Carrie's very powerful, and what she did, it could not be explained. And there were some instances of things that happened with Carrie when she was younger, and it's just going to be a whole just wonderful little treat for people that really only know the movies and not the book. So doing that in a couple weeks, I'm excited about that.
Gotcha. Myself, I recently took in the movie Lucky on Shudder. A highly touted movie. Stars Brea Grant, and I believe she wrote it too. But it's an interesting little take on the slasher genre, and talking about women's issues in their roles in life. It's men and stuff, but she's a writer. Struggling to get her next novel out, I think, is what's going on there. But basically, she wakes up in the middle of the night one night hearing something outside, and there's this guy with a mask standing out in her yard looking at her, and she tells her husband, dude, well, there's a guy outside. He's like, oh, it's that guy. He tries to come in here and kill us every night. And so she's like, what? And they go through and they take care of the killer, and then he disappears, and then they have the cops, and he just keeps showing up every night. And
oh my God!
She keeps having trouble explaining this to men in power and things like that. And it's fabulous. It's got great social commentary. It's got great slasher horror stuff. Brea Grant's terrific, and I really it's a short movie too. It's an hour 23. But I think it did some festival stuff last year too, but it's just premiered on Shudder recently. And I signed up for. Maybe people think it's weird that I'm a horror fan and I don't have Shudder. I had it for a year, and I wasn't using it much because I have a big Blu-ray collection. All their catalog titles on there I either had on Blu-ray already or was on Canopy, the free library app, and I was like. It's not benefit. This is for the person not collecting things, I guess, for the horror. They can see the things they want to, or people not knowing these things, checking them out. But it's a great app, I think, for horror fans to check it out. Their original stuff, I have noticed there's a lot more original stuff on there now than when I used to be.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But I really like Lucky quite a bit. It's very good. It's only... I've heard some angry males have bombed the reviewing on it, so it's only got a 3 out of 5, and I guess there's some. And
I don't know many, and I've heard that just kind of with some of the other reviews that people go and bomb it. I just don't feel like they would take the time. I feel like they're doing.
You'd be surprised.
But yeah, and then I have heard, but there are some trolls that are just so determined to do whatever. But that sounds really interesting. It sounds like a really.
I dug it a lot. I'm a big slasher fanatic, so anytime you take a new spin on it, I'm there.
Yeah.
Whether you live or fail, I dig it. And this I thought was pretty good. And it's an hour 23, so it's lean. It doesn't overdo any of it. But yeah, that was good. I also you mentioned earlier. Did you watch Coming to America yet?
We actually, it's funny. while we ate dinner and getting, right before we started, we finished it. We tried it Friday and it kept, I think because so many people were trying to watch it and it just kept, kicking us out. So we just finished it today. We had 40 minutes left.
Gotcha. Did you enjoy it?
Not really. It was okay. It had some funny parts in there. I just didn't feel the connection like I felt to the first one. And I didn't expect it to be like the first one. I actually wanted it to diverge from the first one more.
Right.
But it was nice, seeing, some of the old characters, especially the barbershop guys. They're always, the some of the funniest, for me. I'm just glad. I am glad they made it. I've been wanting a sequel. Was that the sequel I wanted? No, but I'm really particular about my comedy.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan. And I almost didn't want to watch it, but I wanted to watch it to support it, of course. But Eddie Murphy is so brilliant to me. And I think, not that I want to compare everything, but I think Harlem Nights and The Nutty Professor were his swan songs. I don't think he'll
did you see Dolomite?
Oh, I loved Dolomite.
I thought, like, when he did a Dolomite, I'm like, oh, he's back. And then Coming to America, I'm like, oh, this is going to be...
I did not expect to like Dolomite as much as I did. And I've known Dolomite and the comedy and the movies since I was a teenager.
Right.
And all those crappy movies, but they were good because they were funny and they were outlandish. And, he was like the first... he wasn't the first Black action star, but he was the first consecutive multiple movies Black action star, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong, but when I think about it, I know there's, like Fred Williams and,
Roundtree
and Roundtree. Yeah,
Jim
but they
Brown,
weren't. Yeah, but they weren't a continuous like character. They did action movies and different things, but so maybe I should say action serials. So when you think of like Die Hard movies, or you think about Schwarzenegger, movies, or if he, did multiple movies.
Well, you had them. It was Dolomite and Shaft. Everybody else just did. Well, I guess Harlem movies was only 2 for Williamson. I think that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, but Dolomite, he just became that name synonymous with cheesy action and glorified sex and boobs and gangster stuff, and it was a very different take on. You're right. Dolomite was actually really.
I think he should have got an Oscar nom for that, and it got overlooked. Like, he was so good.
It was good, and it just kind of had that message of just. It was a subtle message. It wasn't a don't give up your dreams. Don't give up on your dreams. It was it's hard work, and you're not going to make it if you don't make it for yourself. Right. And I think that's a good lesson for a lot of people that are exploring anything, whether it's writing or filmmaking or podcasting or Twitch or anything. No one's going to back you if you don't back yourself. If you don't put in the work, why should someone else come in and, try to lift you up higher than you're willing to lift yourself up? And I think that kind of goes back to any social commentary, and the climate of today is people want instant gratification. That's not how life fucking works. You got to put it, you got to put the time in. And I think the whole Dolomite thing, especially, and I can't even say Black cinema, because I feel like there was a lot more Black cinema in the 70s and 80s to a degree, even comparably, probably more than it was now. The money was there. They made
90s too. Yeah.
And I think when people think of movies and it's just like, oh, Black film and Black industry, Black film and industry has been there since Sidney Poitier and Belafonte made their movies. I mean, they financed and they got that funding and they made movies. So it was kind of like with Dolomite, it was a different type of movie, and he had to dig deep and make something out of nothing. And it's kind of that story that the little guy perseveres and pushes forward.
Right. Yeah. For real. Okay. Well, that will do it for today, Audery. Always so much fun spending time with you and talking shop.
You too, because we could just talk about movies forever. But
we talked for an hour before we even recorded this, so to people at home or in your ears. Before we go, let people know where they can keep up with you and the PopCon International Film Festival.
Okay, well, I'm going to say it's hard to find me because people never spell my name right. But if you are so inclined to be up for the challenge, you can find me on Facebook, Facebook /Audery Lane, Audery Lane, Lane, and on Instagram at AUDERY_XCX. And you can always find us on the PopCon Facebook page and at PopCon Film Fest on Instagram. I kind of feel like I'm everywhere and all at once, but, follow us, like us. Oh, the PopCon YouTube page. Check out the material there. Give us a like. We are building that page, and it's been a lot of fun. There's some great stuff that's on there. Brad and Michelle are doing these great videos, giving you everything you didn't know that you wanted to know about certain, TV shows like Tom and Jerry and Saved by the Bell. There's just we're getting the content built. So give us a like, check it out. Honestly, cannot wait to see you all in July at PopCon in Indianapolis, Indiana, July 9th through 11th. So make sure you get your tickets and get ready to have some fun because it's going to rock.
All right. Yeah, looking forward to it. And I am on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD, the written work at whysoblue.com. There's more from the Brandon Peters Show this week. But until then, always remember to keep the positivity in your online film chatter.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.
Okay! First one to Dragon Fire Crossing wins! You lose your car, you got that?